wake up.
People often describe spiritual awakening as a beautiful journey filled with light, love, and inner peace, but that's only part of the story. The more challenging truth is that awakening truly begins not in light, but through intense transformation. It's not a gentle process. Instead, it's a profound breakdown, a period of deep introspection, and a powerful disruption that shatters everything you once believed to be real. When the soul starts to awaken, it doesn't immediately bring bliss. It begins with a sense of collapse. The beliefs you once held dear, the identity you used as protection, and even the relationships and aspirations that defined your life start to dissolve. This isn't because they were inherently bad, but because they are no longer sufficient for the person you are evolving into. This initial phase of unraveling is something many conversations about spiritual awakening tend to overlook. They often provide comforting platitudes but omit the pain, confusion, and loneliness that frequently accompany this beginning. The reality is, this journey will likely break your heart open before it can fill it with light. In this discussion, we'll explore the 5 deeper stages of spiritual awakening, not just the obvious indicators, but the hidden thresholds your soul quietly navigates. These are the stages that are rarely discussed, yet almost everyone who awakens will experience them. If you're currently feeling as though your life is falling apart, misunderstood, or standing on the brink of something vast and intimidating, know that you are not lost or broken. You are experiencing the intense transformation of awakening, and beyond this intense period lies something incredibly real and sacred. Let's explore these stages together, step by step. The awakening doesn't arrive subtly. It crashes into your carefully constructed life like a powerful wave, dissolving your beliefs, identity, and assumptions in a surge of confusion. Initially, you might not fully grasp what's happening. It may start as a growing sense of unease in areas that once felt comfortable, a career that no longer inspires, relationships that feel superficial, or routines that suddenly seem meaningless. You begin to sense a deeper shift within, yet you can't quite articulate it. Soon, this discomfort intensifies into something undeniable. The person you believed yourself to be, with your personal narratives, ambitions, and personality traits, begins to unravel. Things you once valued now seem unfamiliar, and opinions you once defended feel hollow. Even your own reflection in the mirror, and your name, can start to lose their significance. This is not a minor shift. It's the profound crumbling of the internal structure that has sustained you for years. This collapse often brings with it fear, sorrow, and a pervasive sense of loss. This stage can feel like a death, not a physical one, but a psychological and spiritual demise, the death of the ego, of your ingrained identity, and of the self you've been taught to be. It's a terrifying experience because there's no clear guide through it. You might feel disoriented, disconnected, or empty, as everything that once gave your life meaning has been stripped away, with nothing new yet emerging to replace it. This is the paradox. This is not the end, but the very beginning. This disintegration is sacred. Throughout spiritual traditions, from mystics to shamans, this breakdown of identity has always been the first gateway to encountering truth. To awaken, we must first shed our illusions. We must, in a sense, walk unknowingly into our own dismantling. Especially in Western cultures, we are conditioned to build, grow, form identities, achieve success, and progress. However, awakening isn't about construction. It's about burning away what no longer serves. And in this burning, something deeply hidden is revealed. The silent awareness that has always existed beneath the layers of your persona. It's a state of being that cannot be defined or possessed. Yet in the emptiness left by the collapse of identity, it begins to emerge. This space isn't comfortable, glamorous, or suitable for social media. It's raw and quiet. You might find yourself crying without apparent reason, losing track of time, avoiding social interaction, and even questioning your sanity. This isolation isn't necessarily depression, but rather a feeling that external reality no longer feels substantial. During this stage, the world seems to lose its vividness, not because it's fading, but because your strong identification with it is breaking. Many individuals retreat at this point, clinging to what remains of their old identity and attempting to rebuild what was never meant to last. However, for those brave enough to stay and surrender to this disintegration, something extraordinary starts to appear, not a new version of the old self, but an entirely different mode of existence, a profound presence, a deep stillness, a silent Witnessing awareness. You aren't becoming someone new. You are shedding everything you are not, every inherited belief, every protective mask you wore, every effort made to gain acceptance. What remains isn't an empty void, but sacred ground, a place of clarity where you finally connect with yourself, not as a predefined role, but as a living mystery. This is the shattering, and despite its chaotic feel, it is a sacred process, the soul's call for truth and the first irreversible step into the deeper aspects of your awakening. After your identity shatters, you might anticipate a burst of revelation, clarity, peace, or even joy. However, what often follows is far more disquieting, not a divine light, but a profound silence. It's not a serene quiet, but a heavy, echoing stillness that feels louder than any noise you've ever experienced, a silence that screams. In this stage, everything feels hollow. Your thoughts still function, and your body moves through daily life. Yet internally, something essential seems to be missing. You don't feel conventionally sad, but rather suspended, as if disconnected from reality. The world continues around you, but you feel like a specter moving through it. Conversations seem distant, laughter surreal, and deep down, you realize you no longer know how to truly belong to this world. This phase of the spiritual journey is rarely discussed because it lacks dramatic or visionary elements. It's quiet and numb, and its stillness can be terrifying. Friends might encourage you to cheer up or stay positive, but their words simply don't resonate. Even spiritual teachers' affirmations can feel like empty echoes within the vast emptiness you feel. You might question if you've made a mistake or lost your way, but this couldn't be further from the truth. This emptiness isn't a flaw. It's the space between death and rebirth. The old self has dissolved, but the new one has not yet fully emerged. It is a liminal space, an in-between state, and it's not an absence, but a period of incubation. In ancient mystery schools and mystical traditions, this period was known as the dark night of the soul, a sacred passage where the soul is stripped of external support so it can learn to rely on its own essence. It is in this profound silence that the seeds of true spiritual maturity are sown, not through immediate bliss, but through patient waiting, surrender, and learning to exist within the void without needing to fill it. The silence teaches you to listen, not with your ears, but with your entire being. Gradually, beneath the numbness, a deeper sensitivity begins to awaken, allowing you to perceive subtle nuances. You begin to notice subtle sensations, the quality of light, the weight of quietude, and the faint stirring of returning intuition. While still not entirely comforting, this newfound perception feels profoundly real. In a world consumed by noise, distraction, and constant striving, this raw stillness becomes a deeply purifying force. What might not be obvious in the moment, but becomes clear in retrospect, is the profound work this stage accomplishes beneath the surface. Your nervous system is recalibrating, your ego is learning to release its grip, and your soul is establishing a foundation built on presence, not on thought. You are being prepared to embrace something your former self couldn't have contained. Thus, this emptiness, this aching stillness, is not your enemy. It is the sacred space of your rebirth, the ground where the old self has been laid to rest, and where your deeper self is quietly and invisibly incubating. You are not broken. You are in the process of becoming. However, this becoming necessitates a sacred pause, a time when nothing seems to make sense, yet everything is unfolding in perfect order. Stay with it. Do not rush to fill the silence, and do not fear the numbness within. It is the quiet shaping of a new soul, one rooted not in illusion, but in what is truly real. The silence is not an end. It is the beginning of your return. After enduring the collapse of identity and the vast silence that follows, something subtle yet extraordinary begins to stir. It doesn't arrive with dramatic displays or grand visions. Instead, it emerges as a quiet shift in how you perceive reality. One day, you notice a thought passing through your mind, but you are no longer entangled in it. An emotion arises, and instead of being overwhelmed, you simply become aware of its presence. You have become the watcher. This marks the beginning of a new form of consciousness, one that is not fused with the contents of your mind, but rather sees from beyond it. The ego, which once dominated every moment, demanding control and validation, has begun to loosen its hold. It may still whisper and stir, but it no longer defines who you are. For the first time, you realize you can experience thoughts without believing them, emotions without becoming them, and life itself without constantly feeling the need to manipulate it. Initially, this can feel disorienting. You've spent your entire life immersed in the stream of your mind, reacting, defending, chasing, and avoiding. Now, suddenly, there is space. Space between you and your thoughts. Space between a stimulus and your response. You begin to witness yourself, not to judge or fix, but simply to observe. It's as if a deeper presence has assumed the seat of your awareness, and it is vast, expansive, and profoundly curious. This is the moment your soul begins to recall its authentic nature. You are not your past, your traumas, or even your personality. These are merely garments, useful in the world, but not your essential being. Your essence is the still, spacious awareness that observes all things, yet clings to nothing. It remains unaffected by success or failure, pleasure or pain. It simply exists, steady, unchanging, and alive. This shift brings with it a profound inner freedom. Life no longer pulls you around with such intensity. You still experience emotions, sometimes more intensely than before, but you are no longer drowning in them. You can experience grief without collapsing. You can face fear without fleeing. Because now you understand that you are not the waves. You are the ocean in which they rise and fall. This new perspective doesn't make you cold or detached. Quite the opposite. It opens the door to genuine intimacy with life. The nuances of light, the profound stillness of silence, and the subtle stirrings of returning intuition, these become discernible. While still not entirely comfortable, this perception is undeniably real. In a world consumed by noise, distraction, and a relentless drive for progress, this raw stillness becomes a deeply purifying force. What might not be evident at the moment, but becomes clear in retrospect, is the profound inner work taking place during this stage. Your nervous system is recalibrating, your ego is learning to release its grip, and your soul is building a foundation rooted in presence, not merely in thought. You are being prepared to receive something your former self could not have contained, not yet. Therefore, this emptiness, this aching stillness, is not an adversary. It is the womb of your rebirth, the ground where the false self has been laid to rest, and where the deeper self is quietly and invisibly gestating. You are not broken. You are in the process of becoming. However, this becoming necessitates this sacred pause, a period when nothing makes sense, yet everything is unfolding in perfect order. Stay with it. Do not rush to fill the silence. Do not fear the numbness within. It is the quiet shaping of a new soul, one rooted not in illusion, but in what is truly real. The silence is not the end. It is the beginning of your return. After the witness within has awakened, a quiet transformation begins to ripple outward. At first, it's subtle, a softening in how you perceive others, a shift in how you experience the world around you. But over time, it deepens into something unmistakable. The illusion of separation starts to dissolve. The dividing lines between me and you, between inside and outside, no longer hold the weight they once did. It's not that you lose your sense of self entirely. Rather, your definition of self expands. You begin to realize that the boundary you once guarded so tightly was never truly real. It was a story, a survival mechanism, a perceptual lens. But now the lens has cracked, and through the cracks, something beautiful begins to pour in. You start to feel life more intimately. Not just your own, but everyone's. A stranger's sorrow on the street tugs at your chest. The suffering of the world is no longer a distant concept. It pulses in your nervous system. This isn't because you become more emotional or sensitive in a fragile way. It's because your heart is waking up. And with that awakening comes a natural, instinctive compassion. This stage is not about trying to be compassionate. It's not a moral effort. It's a shift in perception so profound that compassion becomes inevitable when the illusion of separation fades. You don't choose to care, you simply do. Because in some deep, undeniable way, you are the other. Their pain is your pain. Their joy is your joy. You feel it all. Even nature begins to speak in a new language. Trees, once just background scenery, begin to radiate presence. Animals seem to look back at you with knowing eyes. The wind feels alive, the moon familiar. You're no longer observing the world from a distance. You are in it, of it, and it is in you. Moments of silence take on a sacred texture. Stillness transcends being merely the absence of noise. It becomes a profound communion with something eternal. The ordinary aspects of life begin to shimmer with a newfound presence. Simple acts like washing dishes, walking barefoot on grass, or sitting quietly with a friend transform into spiritual experiences, not because you deliberately make them so, but because the barrier between the sacred and the mundane has dissolved. This breakdown of separation can, at times, also be disorienting. Old boundaries, psychological, emotional, and even relational, may feel blurred. You might question how to interact with others now that the ego is no longer your primary filter. However, a new way of being gradually emerges. You begin to engage with the world, not from a place of self-preservation, but from authenticity. Your words become gentler, your gaze more open, and your actions more aligned with something deeper than impulse or habit. Perhaps most significantly, your definition of spirituality shifts. It's no longer about reaching for something higher or escaping life's complexities. It's about dissolving into the richness of what is already present. Spiritual awakening becomes less about ascending and more about embracing humanity, emotion, imperfection, and presence. You begin to understand that enlightenment isn't a destination you reach, it's a way of seeing. And when you perceive through the lens of unity, every interaction becomes an opportunity for connection, every breath a reminder of shared life. You no longer strive to find the divine in some distant realm. Instead, you discover it in the eyes of a child, in the vulnerability of your own feelings, in the serene presence of a quiet morning. This is the breakdown of separation, and it marks the beginning of true belonging. After enduring the transformative fire, the profound silence, the awakening of the witness, and the dissolution of all illusion, you arrive at a place that might feel surprisingly ordinary. You are no longer seeking transcendence, no longer obsessed with escaping the world, nor desperate to find meaning in some faraway realm. Instead, you return to your life, into your body, and into the full complexity of being human, but now with eyes that see differently. This return is not a regression, it is the most sacred arrival of all. Because now you move through life not with your old identity, but with a deep-rooted presence. The stillness that once seemed distant is no longer something you visit during meditation. It lives within you. It breathes through you. You carry it into the chaos, into your work, into your relationships, into your every breath. You find yourself speaking more slowly, listening more deeply, pausing before reacting. Even the smallest things, making tea, folding clothes, tending a wound, take on a quiet reverence. There is no need to perform, no hunger to prove yourself. You are not chasing anything anymore. What you sought was never external. It was this, the simplicity of being lived through a heart that has broken open and remained open. This stage of return is what many spiritual teachings allude to, yet few explain with honesty. Enlightenment is often imagined as an escape, a serene detachment floating above everything. But true awakening doesn't remove you from the world. It roots you more deeply within it. It transforms your life into your practice, your presence into your offering. You become a bridge, not metaphorically, but experientially, a bridge between the divine and the mundane, between silence and speech, between knowing and not knowing. You now laugh fully, cry more freely, and experience everything with openness. You are no longer afraid of being broken because you've already been undone, and what remains is true. This does not mean life becomes perfect. Pain still arises, loss still hurts, but your relationship with it has changed. You no longer resist it in the same way. You allow it, meet it, even hold it with a kind of tenderness that once felt impossible. This is not because you are trying to be spiritual, it is because you are finally real. And being real is the most spiritual thing there is. The return also brings with it a quiet humility. There is no need to announce your awakening. There is no desire to convince others. You no longer feel the need to be right. Instead, your sole purpose is to be fully present, open, and filled with a love that stems from authentic truth, rather than from effort. Your very presence becomes your teaching, and your authenticity, your greatest gift. Perhaps most powerfully, you begin to perceive every moment as sacred, not just peak experiences or mystical encounters, but even everyday occurrences like traffic, laundry, long conversations, and shared silences. Life itself transforms into the path. Every step, every breath, every encounter becomes an expression of the divine. This is the return, not to your former self, but to who you have always been, beneath the surface noise. It is not flashy, but it is deeply sacred. You haven't transcended life. You have fully descended into it, awakened, aware, and alive. The journey is never truly finished. There are always more layers to shed, more truths to uncover, and greater depths to embody. But now you walk with open eyes, open hands, and an open heart, and that changes everything. Spiritual awakening isn't a destination you reach, a badge to wear, a title to claim, or a reward for being pure or good. It is far more raw and far more sacred than that. Awakening is a process of remembering, of falling apart, and of the soul's reassembly. And it doesn't happen just once, it occurs in cycles, spirals, and echoes. Each time you go deeper, you shed more of what you are not and reclaim more of your true self. These 5 stages are not sequential steps on a ladder. They overlap, repeat, and resurface when least expected. Each instance strips you a little more bare, not as punishment, but as liberation. What remains after each shedding is something quieter, stronger, and infinitely more real. The deeper truth is that awakening doesn't remove you from the world. It roots you more profoundly within it, but with new eyes. Eyes that can see pain without flinching. Eyes that find beauty in the ordinary. You learn to navigate chaos with inner stillness, to endure heartbreak without collapsing, and to love without demanding anything in return. This isn't because you've become hardened, but because you've awakened to an eternal presence within yourself. And if you're currently in the midst of this process, lost in the silence, darkness, or unraveling, know this: you are not failing. You are being reforged. Something ancient and luminous is being born through you. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Wherever you are on your path, may you continue to return, not to who you were, but to who you truly are. That is the real awakening. This journey through the stages of awakening can be profoundly transformative. If this message resonated with the stirrings within you, please help us amplify it. Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications to join our growing community of seekers. And in the comments below, share which stage of awakening are you experiencing right now?